Python is a programming language that has existed for over 20 years. The history of Python started in the late 1980s when its founder, Guido van Rossum, started working on it. The inspiration for Python programming came from the ABC programming language, whose first version was introduced in 1987. Guido van Rossum was one of the main implementers of the ABC programming language. Later, in 1989, he started developing Python, and the very first version, 0.9, was released for usage in February 1991. Since then, Python has been in development for over 2 decades and consists of a wide community of developers who keep releasing newer updates and features of the programming language. Guido van Rossum was given the title of Benevolent Dictator for life by the members of the Python community to honor him for his long-term dedication and commitment to the project and for being the project leader for such an extended period. The programming language was named Python because Guido van Rossum liked a BBC comedy series called Monty Python's Flying Circus. He wanted the name to be short, unique, and slightly mysterious, thus ending up with the programming language Python. Now I chose top books of Python that make you genius for machine learning and data analysis. Our first book's name is Python Programming Books for Beginner, written by AMZ Press. Have you always wanted to learn Python programming, but you have thought it to be too difficult for you? Are you a beginner, or maybe you have mastered other programming languages and you want to learn Python coding fast and efficiently? Are you looking for the best Python crash course? If yes, then this book is for you. You no longer must lose your time and resources learning Python from long books, costly online courses, or very complicated Python tutorials. This Python Programming for Beginners book is impressive. The book starts with general background information on Python and then guides you step by step on how to develop and understand the Python language. The book lays out the concept in a very simple and straightforward manner so that I didn't get lost or overwhelmed. I recommend this to anyone interested in learning Python, even if you don't know anything about it. A great read, and I highly recommend it. Often the biggest hurdle to learning programming is where to begin. So, seeing the book cover even the most basic steps, like how to download Python and set it up on the computer, really shows how beginner-friendly this book is. Other topics like the different data types aren't glossed over and are covered. I do wish there was a glossary though. You'll need to follow along trying out each example and running them yourself, and then you will learn. A lot of examples and exercises are included after every iteration. Complete with screenshots and strings. The book lays out the concept in a very simple and straightforward manner so that I didn't get lost or overwhelmed. A fantastic job at teaching the terminology and offering simplified examples. The breakdown and explanation of each step are provided after practically every example has been the most helpful. I really suggest it to everyone interested in learning Python. My second choice is the Python Crash Course by Eric Mathis. If you've been thinking about learning how to code or picking up Python, this internationally best-selling guide to the most popular programming language is your quickest, easiest way to get started and go. Even if you have no experience whatsoever, Python Crash Course, 2nd edition, will have you writing programs, solving problems, building computer games, and creating data visualizations in no time. You'll begin with basic concepts like variables, lists, classes, and loops with the help of fun skill-strengthening exercises for every topic, then move on to making interactive programs and best practices for testing your code. Later chapters put your new knowledge into play with 3 cool projects. A 2D Space Invaders-style arcade game, a set of responsive data visualizations you'll build with Python's handy libraries, and a customized web app you can deploy online. This book is clearly written by a teacher who wants to teach. Trust the process and keep at it. You will find yourself suddenly halfway through the book and trying to decide what project to do for the rest of the book. This is not a book for people who don't want to think. Every step is clearly laid out, and if you need to look back, the answers are simple to find. But remember, it is not a funny haha book, it is written to teach you and to do so thoroughly. The practice problems are just independent enough to be challenging, and it does not at all feel like your hand is being held the whole time. Be advised, there is a third edition of this book out now. Not much of a difference, but this is not the latest edition anymore. My second choice is the Python Crash Course by Eric Mathis. If you've been thinking about learning how to code or picking up Python, this internationally best-selling guide to the most popular programming language is your quickest, easiest way to get started and go. Even if you have no experience whatsoever, Python Crash Course, 2nd edition, will have you writing programs, solving problems, building computer games, and creating data visualizations in no time. You'll begin with basic concepts like variables, lists, classes, and loops with the help of fun skill-strengthening exercises for every topic, then move on to making interactive programs and best practices for testing your code. Later chapters put your new knowledge into play with 3 cool projects: a 2D Space Invaders-style arcade game, a set of responsive data visualizations you'll build with Python's handy libraries, and a customized web app you can deploy online. This book is clearly written by a teacher who wants to teach. Trust the process and keep at it. You will find yourself suddenly halfway through the book and trying to decide what project to do for the rest of the book. This is not a book for people who don't want to think. Every step is clearly laid out, and if you need to look back, the answers are simple to find. But remember, it is not a funny haha book, it is written to teach you and to do so thoroughly. The practice problems are just independent enough to be challenging, and it does not at all feel like your hand is being held the whole time. Be advised, there is a 3rd edition of this book out now. Not much of a difference, but this is not the latest edition anymore. My 4th book name is Learning Python by Mark Lutz. Get a comprehensive, in-depth introduction to the core Python language with this hands-on book. Based on author Mark Lutz's popular training course, this updated 5th edition will help you quickly write efficient, high-quality code with Python. It's an ideal way to begin, whether you're new to programming or a professional developer versed in other languages. This huge book has a comparably sized index of 33 pages. Index thoroughness is one of the first things I look for in a reference book. If you are a moderately advanced to advanced Python programmer, this can be your go-to book for solving some esoteric programming problems. You can read it as a very dense novel, or as I do, dip into it when necessary. All the people griping about how long this book is are obviously not the target audience of this book. Yes, the book is long, but to effectively use a programming language, there is a lot to learn. And this book does a great job of metering out that information. All the people gripping about how there's too many forward references to other topics are obviously not the target audience of this book. Yes, there are forward references, because there must be. You can't learn every topic about a language in a linear way, it's simply not possible. If you are the target audience of this book, then you already understand that. If you've never programmed before, this is the wrong book. If you want a quick get-acquainted book about Python, this is the wrong book. If you want a reference manual for Python, this is the wrong book. This book does not claim to be any of those things. This book is a tutorial for people who have written programs before, who want to become an expert in Python. If that's you, then you understand that the book is necessarily long. The Python language is a somewhat larger language than C or old-school Java. So, there is a lot to cover. Lists are built into the language, sequences are built into the language, dictionaries are built into the language, tuples are built into the language, sets are built into the language. This is in contrast to the Java language or C language. This book explains all of those built-ins and why they are built in. If you aren't interested in any of that, then this is the wrong book for you. This book also goes into detail about why the language is designed the way it is. And it does this not only in regard to the high-level design of the language, but it does this for every nuance and detail of the language. This is great information if your goal is to follow best practices when actually using the language for real-world problems. If you just want to write little toy programs and you don't care about best practices, then this is the wrong book for you. The entirety of the Python ecosystem is massive, and this book goes into detail about a lot of that ecosystem. Although even a book of this size does not cover all of that ecosystem. This includes things like embedding Python in a larger C application, calling C functions from Python, properties, metaclasses, decorators, unicode, exceptions, object-oriented classes, etc. You think it's possible to learn all that detail, learn all the best practices of managing all those language features, and do it in a 100-page book? Well, if you do, then you are not the target audience of this book. People who want to learn to use Python to do production-grade programming realize that understanding all this detail takes a lot of pages, it takes patience, and it takes forward references. My fifth book is Modern Time Series Forecasting with Python by Manu Joseph. We live in a serendipitous era where the explosion in the quantum of data collected and a renewed interest in data-driven techniques such as machine learning, ML, has changed the landscape of analytics, and with it, time series forecasting. This book, filled with industry-tested tips and tricks, takes you beyond commonly used classical statistical methods such as ARIMA and introduces to you the latest techniques from the world of ML. This is a comprehensive guide to analyzing, visualizing, and creating state-of-the-art forecasting systems, complete with common topics such as ML and deep learning, DL, as well as rarely touched upon topics such as global forecasting models, cross-validation strategies, and forecast metrics. You'll begin by exploring the basics of data handling, data visualization, and classical statistical methods before moving on to ML and DL models for time series forecasting. This book takes you on a hands-on journey in which you'll develop state-of-the-art ML, linear regression to gradient-boosted trees, and DL, feed-forward neural networks, LSTMs, and transformers, models on a real-world dataset, along with exploring practical topics such as interpretability. By the end of this book, you'll be able to build world-class time series forecasting systems and tackle problems in the real world. The book is for data scientists, data analysts, machine learning engineers, and Python developers who want to build industry-ready time series models. Since the book explains most concepts from the ground up, basic proficiency in Python is all you need. Prior understanding of machine learning or forecasting will help speed up your learning. My sixth book name is Data Structures and Algorithms in Python, written by John Canning. This was a comprehensive book on data structures in Python. Covers from the list to graphs. It also covers searching and every algorithm in between with a comparison by speed. I could see this being used to teach data structures in college. This practical introduction to data structures and algorithms can help every programmer who wants to write more efficient software. Building on Robert Laffer's legendary Java-based guide, this book helps you understand exactly how data structures and algorithms operate. You'll learn how to efficiently apply them with the enormously popular Python language and scale your code to handle today's big data challenges. Throughout, the authors focus on real-world examples, communicating key ideas with intuitive interactive visualizations, and limiting complexity and math to what you need to improve performance. Step by step, they introduce arrays, sorting, stacks, queues, linked lists, recursion, binary trees, 2 to 3 to 4 trees, hash tables, spatial data structures, graphs, and more. Their code examples and illustrations are so clear, you can understand them even if you're a near beginner or your experience is with other procedural or object-oriented languages. My seventh book name is Python Tricks. A buffet of awesome Python features by Dan Bader. You'll get one step closer to mastering Python so you can write beautiful and idiomatic code that comes to you naturally. Learning the ins and outs of Python is difficult, and with this book, you'll be able to focus on the practical skills that really matter. Discover the hidden gold in Python's standard library and start writing clean and Pythonic code today. Far from being just a shallow collection of snippets, this book will leave the attentive reader with a deeper understanding of the inner workings of Python, as well as an appreciation for its beauty. This book is a great tool to get the greatest number of best practices and ideas that are unique to Python programming languages. It also serves as a reference manual for many of the Python features and techniques. This is not intended as an entry point book for someone who has no knowledge about Python programming, but having gone through other learning tutorials prior, this was the perfect level, and it motivated me to look out for more Python stuff to learn, and I am going through learning web development, thus Django.